Hey everyone, today I'm taking a look at Messina 1347, which is a 1 to 4 player Euro strategy board game designed by Vladimir Suki and published by Delicious Games. This one takes around an hour to 2 hours to play on average. Before I get into my review of Messina 1347, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer in the UK, so be sure to check out their great website and use my discount code in the show notes to get 5% off your first order. Okay, so once set up, Messina is going to look like this, where you have this main board here, which is used to hold a lot of the different components. So you've got 3 different types of workshops, which you can acquire throughout the game. The same applies to these upgraded quarantine houses, and you've got 2 different wagons on display at all times as well. On top of that, you've got these 3 tracks, which you're going to be climbing throughout the game to give you upgrades and victory points as you go. Additionally, the person at the end of the game with the most, or the highest up on each of these tracks is going to get 10 points. Second place 7 points, and third place 3 points. This little part here shows the turn order each round, and you've got a little round structure breakdown here as well, where the game is going to play out over 6 rounds, and in some of those rounds the game rules are going to change very slightly. You've also got the main map here of Messina, and this is completely modular, and the layout does change depending on the player count, where essentially you have these hexes, which are essentially your worker placement spots to collect resources, money, climb tracks and things like that. And you've also got these 4 docking stations put on these spots like this. Additionally, each player is going to have their own personal player board. I think this main part is probably worth ignoring for now, and I'll explain it later because it might look a little bit overwhelming. But you've also got these quarantine houses here, which can come into play, and you've also got this scroll track here where you have 3 different tracks you can climb up, which will give you points based on different things you do throughout the game. And then you've got the generic resources such as these flame tokens, you've got wood and play cubes, and these rat tokens as well, and you also have money, and you have all these different civilians that can come into play. Okay, so each round of Messina is going to follow quite a rigid structure, but the first round works slightly differently. However, normally, starting from the second round, the first player will be determined based on a certain criteria, i.e. in the second round, the first player will be the person to climb the highest on this track here. But once turn order is decided, you're going to go to these boat tokens here, and you're going to reveal the top one. Like so, you can see this one is the one with the build icon and the double flame icon, and then you're going to put the first boat on this stack here on that docking station, which is going to be this one here. And that's going to sail into port like this, and it's also going to have one of these play cubes on them. Now, one of the ideas of this game is that you're trying to basically completely eradicate these black play cubes, because you are trying to fight the Black Death in this game, and you're going to get rewarded for doing so. Also, in future rounds, you may be adding tiles onto the map to expand your options. However, in the first round, you do not do that. So after you've done those 2 things, you are going to use this little wheel here, which is essentially a randomizer to determine how things are going to affect the main map of Messina. So you can see here that it's going to have a certain rat token on it, or rat icon. This one showing the one who's on his all fours and looking to the left, and then a play cube is going to go on each of those matching symbols. You can see here I've already put a black play cube on all the rats facing to the left. Now this is important because again you want to try and eradicate those black play cubes, but additionally they can end up killing these civilians. So after you've done that, you're going to have a look at all the 3 different types of civilians, and you're going to place one on each of the matching colours. You can see here all these none icons want to go on the orange spaces. So again, you can see I've done that here. So all the nuns are on the orange spaces. I've got all these nobles on these bluish spaces, and all these workers on the white spaces. So once you've done that bit of admin, you're going to go into the main bulk of the game, where you are going to be deploying your little workers onto the map. So the first turn, you can place your worker absolutely anywhere. So let's just say I wanted to place it here, like so. Now, when you do that, you are first going to have a look if there are any of these tokens on them. And you can see there is one here. So I'll end up taking this noble and I'll place it somewhere on my player board. Now, when I do that, I can put it on any of these noble spaces, again, which I'll talk about the relevance of later. But let's say I put it there like that. Now, if I wanted to put a spot or collect a token where there is a play cube, then I have the option to basically eliminate that play cube by spending one of these fire tokens, which is a resource you can collect throughout the game. And whenever you do that, you are going to spend that fire token, you're going to eliminate that play cube, and then you are going to climb up on this reputation track. So again, another incentive for you to eliminate those black cubes, because you can collect bonuses as you go, such as money. I'm climbing up the other tracks. I'm getting one of these overseer actions, which I'll talk about later. I'm gaining victory points, resources, and the like. Additionally, whenever you end up rescuing one of these civilians from a spot with a play cube on them, they have to go into quarantine, which is one of these spots on your player board. You have 4 of these spots, and then you'll put that token onto the first spot. And what this means is that they'll essentially stay in quarantine for 2 rounds. You go 1 round here, then the second round, before you can get to utilize them. So let's talk about what some of these spots offer. So the first one here lets you flip over one of your already collected civilians to the other side, like so, to make it an upgraded version. And what that means is that these are like an improved version which can go into better buildings, which I'll explain shortly, but also they'll start generating you victory points at the end of each round. You've also got these pretty obvious spots here, which will give you flame tokens, wood tokens, money tokens, let you climb the relevant tracks, a double wood token there. And you've also got one that looks like this, which is a building spot. Now, when you go to a building spot, you have the option to build a different building. So you've got these workshops here, which are going to cost you the resources listed on the left-hand side. So this one's going to cost you a coin and a wood token. So let's just say I built that one by spending those resources. And then I can add them to my personal player board like so. However, they are not occupied yet, because you can see, in order for me to occupy this building, I need to have a noble, or if I have an upgraded noble, I am going to get the better reward. And what this is going to do is going to generate me victory points at the end of each round. So you can see if I've got a normal one, I'm going to get 1 point, but if I have an upgraded one, I'm going to get 1 plus 2 points. And these do different things, such as getting you victory points, getting you resources, getting you coins, even getting you flame tokens. Another type of building you can buy is one of these upgraded quarantine houses. So again, just like normal, you're going to spend the resources, this one being a wood token, and then you're going to put it on your personal player board and overlap one of your existing buildings. Now, this is a really cool mechanism where now your person who's in quarantine, who would normally be completely unproductive, is going to start working for you and gaining you resources just passively. So this one's going to generate a coin and a point at the end of each production phase. And the final type of building you can build are these wagons, where again, you'll pay the resources, get the chunk of victory points on them, and these will come into play later when you want to start repopulating the city of Messina. You can also see that this port here has a double flame token. Now, these are really great to get rid of these play cubes, because if you spend a flame cube, let's say I went here, you can actually not only kill or destroy the play cube on this one, but also one on an adjacent tile to climb 2 up that track. And the final one we haven't touched on are these overseer markers. So this one here is like a wild overseer. You can see all the different ports have a different type of overseer marker on them as well. And when you use that action, you are going to choose the corresponding marker here, and you're going to slide it down one of these pathways. So this isn't a great example of doing it because I've only got 1 noble on this spot, but I could move this one to here like so and activate one of the civilians on one of these spots connected to it. So you can see here, this one is going to allow me to flip over another civilian. So maybe I'd want to upgrade this one like this. And these offer a bunch of different bonuses, such as giving you building actions, letting you climb tracks, get coins, letting you climb up the scroll track to, again, invest in certain things at the end of the game, and things like that. So you've got a lot of options there. Also, normally you cannot share a spot with someone else, so the blue player could not go here. However, the exception to that are these dock spots where any number of people can go there. And when you do that, you are going to have the option to interact with one of these boats and get the reward on them, such as these coins. And as usual, you can spend a flame to eradicate one of those cubes. However, if you ever choose not to eradicate one of those cubes, you will acquire one of these rat tokens. And the more rat tokens you acquire throughout the game, it's going to score you a hell of a lot of victory points based on a sliding scale. Now, obviously, in future rounds, you are going to start populating this board here. And from that point, you cannot just choose and pick up things anywhere on the map. You have to move to adjacent spaces. So this one here, this meeple here could essentially go to here if you wanted to for free. But you could even go further than that by paying coins. So for every additional hex you want to move, you can pay a coin for. Let's also take a quick look at all these different tracks here and what they offer. So this one here basically lets you take an overseer action of your choice, can let you climb the tracks of the other two, get you coins, get you scroll actions. This one here lets you unlock new meeples, so you have more workers to work with. And these overseer tokens here let you flip your overseer markers to the other side to give you an upgraded action. So you actually get 2 overseer actions when you activate that one. So when you slide down these tracks here, instead of activating just one from this region, you can activate 2. And you can also see that when you reach certain spots like this one here, it kind of encroaches on both areas of your, your nuns and your nobles, and you can choose either of them. But if you have this double one, you can choose 2 of one and 1 of the other. You can also see here from this round structure that later in the game, you might start putting 2 boats down on the docking stations, and you might even put double play cubes down in one round. And on top of that, the play becomes even more potent in the 5th and 6th round, where you have to spend 2 flame markers to destroy a single cube. However, when you do that, you are going to get 2 victory points. And in the last round, you do not put any play cubes down whatsoever. And the final mechanism that I haven't talked about is to repopulate the city. So if you've spent the resources to acquire one of these wagons, you are going to have the option to repopulate the city. So when you do that, you, as normal, would go onto the spot, collect any civilians if there, maybe fight a play cube. But instead of taking this action, you can forsake it in order to take this part up here, where you will spend these resources, i.e. in this example, a coin, a nun, and an upgraded worker, in order to get this many victory points. And when you do that, you're going to flip your wagon over, because you're going to have to spend one for each time you do this. And you're also going to put one of your markers on that spot here to show that you played a part in kind of restoring that part of the city. Now that does mean that you secured these victory points at the end of the game, but it also means that if somebody else ends up going to your spot later in the game by going here, you will generate 2 victory points. And additionally, if there is ever a play cube on that, you're going to automatically generate 1 of these rat tokens. So it is a bit of a risk to do that. So once everybody has exhausted all of their workers, you're going to generate all your income from your upgraded quarantine houses, from your upgraded civilians, and from your workshops in order to get all your different resources, points, etc. And after that, you're going to lay down all your workers to show that they are inactive and ready to be used again. And additionally, any civilian still alive with one of these play cubes on them is going to be removed from the game as they have been killed by the Black Death. And that is essentially how you play Messina 1347. After 6 rounds, the person with the most victory points will be the winner. Okay, so let's get into my thoughts on Messina. So I really enjoy this kind of worker movement system, and I much prefer it to a standard worker placement game. I think this game would lose a lot of strategy if it was just the process of placing the worker wherever you wanted. I love this degree of foresight and foreplanning and strategy that you need to bear in mind, where, this round I am going to go here, with the idea of next round getting a free movement to go to here, like so. But, if you do find yourself in a bit of a corner, you can end up spending your money to skip further along the board. But of course, that's going to be quite efficient because you might want to use your money to do other things. Additionally, you want to be quite careful about what you prioritize, because the board is relatively tight and people are going to be competing for the same spaces. So you want to prioritize what you think your opponent might go for. So yeah, very nice tight board there with some good degree of player interaction. And a big part of this game is the ability to chain actions together to get these kind of domino effect actions, as is the case with a lot of Vladimir Suki games. So I love this idea of maybe going to, or maybe using your flame to put out, a cube, and then using that one to climb up this track here. That one will let you climb another track, which will let you climb this one here, which will let you upgrade one of your overseer tokens. Flipping it to the other side, and then in a future turn you might want to move down here like this and activate all your different civilians as a single action to get lots of bang for your buck. So I love that kind of efficiency and timing puzzle where you want to make sure you have the resources in your kitty to make sure that when you do trigger these things, deliberately or not, you have the option to fully utilize it. So yeah, there certainly is a lot of tinkering here, and the ability to play out these big satisfying turns I also think this quarantine mechanism is absolutely genius. If you end up rescuing one of these civilians from a safe spot here, then you can use it straight away and put it straight on your board, ready to utilize. But if they had a cube on them, you're going to have to shove them in one of these houses, which is annoying because it's just a waste of time. However, I love the way you can spend these resources to get these upgraded buildings to make sure that they're productive when they're sat there doing nothing. Really good idea, thematic, and it just works well for the game. I also really enjoy the variety of ways you can score points here, because a lot of these workhouses and upgraded civilians will give you kind of ticking points to generate you a slow trickle of points each round, but that can really build up if you get these down on the board early. But alternatively, if you fall back on something like this and you fall behind, you might have to divert your strategy and focus on maybe repopulating the city to get these big bursts of points rather than that slow and steady income. So yeah, I love the balance between the two. And also this repopulation mechanism is great because you can get a huge chunk of points for doing so. However, you do have to give up the resources in the first place. And I love that kind of tension of the turning point of when are you going to start repopulating the city, because if you go too early, then there's a good chance that more play tokens are going to come out and you're going to start generating these rat tokens, which are going to score you negative points. But additionally, you want to go early to beat other people to the punch, because there's some really chunky points available here, such as this 19 spot here. And you want to be the first to get that, because that can be a huge swing of points. So you might be, you might be lured in to do that early, or maybe earlier than you should do, especially as some of these even require you to give up workers for the rest of the game. So that's going to be quite a hefty decision. And you might want to make sure that you're focusing on climbing this track to get backups for that. I also think a great decision has been made here to introduce these level 2 workshops when it comes towards the end of the game. And these level 2 buildings give you an instant reward rather than that steady income, because the desire to take a slow income towards the end of the game is going to be pretty much non-existent, whereas these are still really worth having, such as giving you a big chunk of points, giving you coins, or even let you climb up tracks really quickly. Now, I will say something that seems to be a pattern in each of the games of Messina that I've played is that these boat tokens get completely neglected and just ignored. Now, I'm not sure if that's just the kind of gamers we are and it's something that we're missing out on. I just didn't really feel the massive incentive or the urge to spend so many resources and time to come right to these extremities of the board in order to do these things. Now, I understand that maybe if you invest your whole game in trying to collect those boat tokens and fully investing on this scroll track here, then that might pay pretty huge dividends. But that's just something that I haven't really explored, and it seems to be, again, an ongoing pattern each time I play this. I've also found that avoiding these rat tokens is actually pretty easy. Each time I've played this, I've not collected a single rat token. Now, maybe that is because I'm a really cautious player, and I would rather just, completely not worry about that and have a concrete decision that I'm not going to take any rat tokens. And maybe I'm missing a trick with that, because taking 1 or 2 rat tokens is absolutely fine. You're only going to lose a couple of points, but having a whole chunk of them at the end is going to be pretty catastrophic. But I would have liked it to be a little bit tougher to get around avoiding these rat tokens. I also feel like the game has a fantastic game arc. It's one of those games where for the first 3 rounds, it feels like you're not really getting much done. Then all of a sudden, when you get to that halfway point, it feels like things really start ramping up. You're getting way much more done than you had before. You've got more workshops down. You've maybe got upgraded quarantine houses. You've lined up a big move for your overseers. So yeah, things really do crescendo in this game. And that also ties into the time investment and the game length for Messina. So I think if you are playing this at 3 or 4 players and you have, people who want to min-max everything and maybe take a bit longer to ponder over their turns rather than being instantly decisive, then it does have the potential to run towards that 2-hour game length. However, if you do have players who are relatively snappy in taking their turns, and if you're playing 2 players, this game is remarkably quick. So I actually played this the other day with only 2 players, and we got this completed from start to finish in about 65 minutes, which I thought was pretty damn impressive of a game of this magnitude. There's a good degree of player interaction here, as of course you are standing on each other's toes, trying to get to the best spots, jumping there before your opponents get there, climbing the tracks to get the majorities here for the end game scoring, and even winning in the different categories to be first player in all of the rounds. I think the game scales well in general because the actual map is going to expand or contract based on the player count to keep things feeling tight. But yeah, I think probably the best spot here is probably 2 or 3 players for me. 2 players because it is so quick to resolve, and 3 players because it adds a little bit more competition for the spots and it adds a bit more life into the track climbing. Production-wise, the game is more than adequate. I like the way everything looks. Nice, clear, precise symbology. No reason to go look in the rulebook to see what anything means or anything like that. So yeah, I'm very impressed with the symbology and the way everything's been produced and graphically designed. The physical production is absolutely fine, as you'd expect. Relatively high quality tiles there. They're not flimsy or anything like that. And all your standard traditional Euro components, such as these wooden discs, which you do have to sticker up at the start. You've got your wooden cubes, and all the different resources and things are absolutely fine. Maybe these civilian tokens are a little bit small and fiddly, but that is a bit of a nitpick. Okay, so let's get into some final thoughts for Messina 1347, and I have to say this is another big hit from Vladimir Suki for me. These last recent years I've really been diving into Suki's games, and they've all been kind of one hit after another, just unanimously good. And this is certainly another example of that. I think this is certainly of that pedigree and quality of his other games. And there's just so much to enjoy here. I love the ability to pull off these big moves, this timing exercise to line things up just perfectly to get those big payoffs, and just the tension of grabbing the spots that you want before the other people do, and prioritizing things accordingly. So yeah, and it actually works surprisingly intuitively as well. It's not a terribly complex game, and I think you can tie things back to the theme quite organically. So yeah, a lot of fun to be had here. If you have players who don't mull over the decisions too much, you can actually get this done and played pretty quickly as well. And there's just lots of different routes you can go down, points galore. I suppose one of the small issues I have with the game is the potential to have a runaway leader, especially if they end up getting a lot of these ticking points early in the game. And generating points before you have the chance to do so, it can be quite difficult to make up ground for that. At least that's what I found. But I do understand that you can potentially get around that by being a bit more risky by repopulating these cities and getting those big chunks of points. But again, lots to explore here. Good track climbing, just good choices and consequences to your actions. And it's a hell of a lot of fun with a theme that's rarely explored, which is a really interesting time in history. So yeah, a big hit for me. I was really toying with how to grade this one, and I think I'm going to give it pretty much the strongest shield of quality that I possibly can without giving it an elite shield. But I definitely think there's room for improvement on this one. I think it could climb even higher because it is that solid and is up there with the best of Suki games. So that is Messina 1347, certainly one of the best games of 2021.